This is the Digital Trust Podcast. In every episode, we strive to bring support to those of you who serve on the front lines and in the trenches of data and technology. We endeavor to bring understanding to the under-resourced and underappreciated, help remove your stress, and provide relief to your pain. Welcome to the Digital Trust Podcast. Sit down with us as we give you hard-hitting advisory conversations to help you build digital trust with your stakeholders and clients, and actionable takeaways to help you become a digitally trustworthy organization.
Hello, everyone, again, and welcome to this edition of the Digital Trust Podcast. My name is Christian. I'm your host today. And once again, we have Michelle Dennedy from Los Altos, California, joining us for part 2 of this data privacy series. Welcome back, Michelle. Michelle, I love what you're saying about building digital trust for organizations. And I think trust comes down to the human interaction, human relationships, and communication. Can you talk a little bit about that human element of digital trust?
Absolutely. And so this is where I'm really going with my long mantra of like, what are our expectations and how do we build for them? We're trying to build things that are as overt as possible so that your experience from the time you purchase to customer care, all those other things, what are we doing when we do these things? We're setting a mindset. We're setting a human expectation. We're setting a feeling. Trust is a feeling. As much as data scientists would love this to all be very zeros and ones and things that you can do with math, the reality is, and especially now with the advent of AI tools that are available and quantum coming up, the human element in trust is everything, because the human element allows people to feel a certain way about the provider. You're looking at the leadership. You're looking at the person who's at the sales desk giving you service. You're operationally, who is your leader within doing these governance work? Is this someone you're going to ask questions to if you're a marketing person? Or is this an organization that you're going to say, oh God, don't invite the lawyers, they're going to say no? That human element invites the question, invites the dialogue, invites the trust.
So at that human level and at the company level, what are some practical steps, Michelle, that organizations can take to establish digital trust?
I think one of the things has gotten a little bit outdated, but you have to find creative ways of doing it. I used to say the best way to start the culture of digital trust and privacy is like pizza and comfortable shoes, showing up in break rooms, being present. And so we have to be more creative now that people are dispersed a little bit more than they were, but really understanding, like driving around town in your minivan and pointing out like, hey, there's a surveillance camera. How would you feel if that was pointed into your living room? Oh, that's something I can get my mind around instead of talking about quantum is hard to test because you're not really sure how the floating point of operation is happening. That's a lot harder for someone to say, I don't really understand how I'm going to build trust into a quantum system. Instead, we break it down and we say, what is our business? What are our objectives other than making money? What is our business? Are we selling hardware? Are we selling a tangible good? Are we selling a feeling? Are we selling education and words? Are we selling a service so that we're coming in as experts that you can trust to help you organize and be creative about your business? So once you figure out really what is that business rule, now you can start to figure out what are the components that I can automate, because that's trustworthy. If I have a spreadsheet, that feels good. What are the things that are repetitive? So I can say, look, here's my kind of feel of good housekeeping. The Better Business Bureau says, check this. Yes, that's where standards come in. That's where laws and frameworks come in. And then who do I go to when I have a problem? So if you're figuring out how to really integrate your privacy and your security practices, it's not just people in black hoodies swooping in when something bad has happened. It's really figuring out we're the people who are helping you to curate your data to be as beautiful, effective, valuable as possible. And then you start to invite in the creatives. You invite in the sales guys who know how to persuade. You invite in the legal people who are like, oh, here's a gotcha point. Let's figure out how to work with this. And then suddenly you have a system that is a data culture. And so now you have something that really works that you can demonstrate over time to anyone who asks, and that's trust.
You mentioned, I appreciate you defining it that way and giving that practical advice there on how to implement digital trust. You mentioned the legal people, the lawyers. Being a lawyer yourself and having that background, how has that influenced your approach to data privacy?
It really is sort of foundational, and it hasn't wavered a ton. So I consider myself part human rights lawyer because I do privacy. It deals with people, but I started out life as a patent litigator. So the way that we're trained is to really, and it's, it's not that hard. It's not that different from a tax lawyer, actually. You're looking at what is the corpus of ownership of an intellectual idea? So particularly in patents, is this something that already existed? Is it new and non-obvious to an expert in that field? So every time a patent litigator approaches a case, or a patent prosecutor, if they're writing your work for you, we sort of look at it and say, I know that I don't know what this invention is, so I can't be scared of new inventions. I have to look at it and be curious about it and say, how does this fit in with what has come before? What was its inspiration? That's what my disclosure is going to be. And now we get down to the important part of, what are the claims? What do we own? What do we own for a limited period of time? That's what patents are, a limited monopoly in an idea. So how are we going to actually put this down so that the public good of replicating that invention happens? So there's transparency, but there's also boundaries. What are the rules? These are the claims that I own for a certain period of time. Here's the disclosure to say that it is owned by others. So privacy can be, and security can be, really broken down in a similar fashion, even if it's something radically new, like trying to get healthcare records and looking at cell formulations in a quantum compute situation. And there are live practical quantum compute instances going on in the world right now. It's going to take us over, and it's going to be a whole new category. What about this whole hallucinations thing with low quality data being fed into data models for generative AI models? I don't look at that and go, oh my gosh, privacy is dead. Instead, I look at it and I say, okay, what is the outcome we want to get? Are we trying to do a rough draft that we know might not have citations, that might be copied off, but at least it's a good boundary for me to start writing? That might be a great application for that sort of a generative model. Am I instead looking for precision or future-facing creativity? I'm not going to find that in most of these models today, because they're not serving, the back end of data isn't serving that kind of model. So by breaking things down into their elements of, what is the corpus? What is the activity that has to go around that thing to stay within rules? And then what are the overall context and business expectations? That's really how I approach all of this privacy stuff. And remembering that my client is the human story. Like, if you violate privacy, to me, you're violating human history. We need to each be able to have the power to discern ourselves one from the other, and tell our story should be told honestly and with integrity, whether it's a government entity telling how much tax I owe, or whether it's a marketing person not disturbing me within my home in an intimate way that I wasn't expecting. This is how integrity of personal stories and information interlocks to really drive us forward as a society.
Mm-hmm. You've gone into a really bunch of different tributaries on that river, and I really appreciate that, because it all kind of ties together. All of these topics roll together. But you've done a great job of illustrating the natural bridge between a lawyer and a privacy professional, and how that is implemented. I did want to get into other things today, but it looks like we're running out of time once again, as seems to always happen.
It happens when I show up.
It does indeed, but we will continue this conversation in the next episode and talk about some more amazing things and deep into your well of wisdom. Thank you for sharing that with us. And thanks everybody for joining us today and being part of this conversation and spending your time with us. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for joining us today on the Digital Trust Podcast. If you found this conversation helpful, please share it with someone you care about. And if you'd like to receive our monthly newsletter, please click the link in the description to subscribe. And to put your mind at ease, our newsletter will include episode summaries with key points and actionable takeaways, plus a heads up on the upcoming episode guests. Rest assured, it won't be a spammy sales message, and we will never sell or share your information. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you on the next episode.